If you've ever stood over a wilting plant, watering can in hand, wondering how it's dying despite all your care, you're not alone. Most potted plants don't die from neglect. They die from love, specifically too much of it in liquid form. Overwatering silently suffocates roots, displaces oxygen, and turns soil into a lifeless swamp. Yet, centuries before modern irrigation systems and water meters, growers had a remarkably simple method to keep roots hydrated and breathing: the moisture core. It's a buried reservoir that keeps soil evenly damp for weeks without drowning the plant. Once you understand how it works, you'll never look at watering the same way again. The real reason plants die from too much water has nothing to do with water itself. To grasp why the moisture core works, you first need to understand what really happens in overwatered soil. It's not the water that kills roots, it's the lack of air. When soil stays soaked for too long, those air pockets collapse, forcing the roots into anaerobic conditions where beneficial microbes die and rot-causing bacteria thrive. That's why plants in soggy soil begin to yellow, wilt and rot from the base up, even as the pot looks, moist. The goal isn't to add more water, it's to control where that water sits. That's what ancient gardeners from arid regions figured out centuries ago. Instead of watering the entire surface, they buried porous vessels or organic matter deep within the root zone. These reservoirs slowly release moisture over time, keeping roots supplied without suffocating them. The modern equivalent of this concept is the moisture core, a low-tech living hydration system you can build from simple materials you already have. The science behind the moisture core is about creating a controlled hydration gradient. A moisture core works by establishing a moisture gradient in the soil, wetter in the center, drier toward the edges. Roots are naturally drawn to this gradient, growing inward toward consistent moisture rather than spreading shallowly near the surface. This not only strengthens the root system, but also teaches the plant to self-regulate its water uptake. The materials used to form a moisture core mimic natural water-holding components found in fertile earth. A typical core contains a blend of organic matter like composted leaves, coconut coir, shredded moss, and sometimes clay granules. So, the trick is to layer these materials in such a way that they can hold water, yet still allow oxygen exchange. It's a bit of a balancing act, really. When moistened, the core absorbs water like a sponge, slowly releasing it into the surrounding soil as it dries. This gentle process helps keep your plants happy and healthy. Building a moisture core requires precision, but once done, it lasts months. To make one, start with a pot that drains well. Begin by creating a central channel, a hole or cavity about the width of your hand, running vertically down the middle of the soil. Into this channel, pack alternating layers of moisture-retaining and aerating materials. So, a good sequence, really, might be a handful of compost mixed with coir, followed by a small layer of damp leaf mould or worm castings, and then, a few handfuls of straw or shredded bark. The top layer of the core should always be fibrous. something that prevents surface evaporation but still allows gas exchange. Once you've built the core, just water it thoroughly the first time. The materials will swell a bit, locking in that precious moisture. From then on, you'll only need to water the plant when the top few inches of soil are dry. The moisture core underneath will continue to feed the roots slowly, keeping the plant nicely hydrated without ever drowning it. For outdoor containers or, large pots, you can make larger moisture cores by burying a perforated bamboo tube or a terracotta pipe filled with organic material. The principle is the same: slow diffusion of moisture from the centre outward. These systems can go, 2 to 3 weeks without surface watering, which is why traditional farmers in India and North Africa still rely on similar underground hydration techniques to this day. A moisture core does more than regulate water. It transforms soil life. Beyond hydration, the moisture core is an incubator for beneficial microbial activity. Because it stays consistently damp and oxygenated, it becomes a perfect breeding ground for bacteria and fungi that decompose organic matter into root-available nutrients. Over time, this turns compacted or sterile potting soil into a living ecosystem. If you've ever used store-bought potting mix that goes hard after a few months, this technique reverses that. The organic layers within the core act as a slow composting centre, constantly feeding your plant from below. You'll notice roots growing deeper, soil staying looser, and even pests like fungus gnats disappearing since the surface remains relatively dry. In survival terms, this is crucial knowledge. If you had to grow food or maintain medicinal plants with limited water access, the moisture core system could mean the difference between sustainability and failure. It conserves up to half the water compared to surface watering, reduces evaporation, and builds resilience in both soil and plants. Historical evidence shows ancient civilizations perfected this method long before modern horticulture. Historical texts and excavations reveal that moisture core-like systems were in use as early as 400 BCE. The Persians and Egyptians buried porous clay jars near plant roots, filling them periodically so moisture seeped through the walls. In China and Mesopotamia, farmers used hollowed gourds filled with organic debris to achieve the same effect. What they were building, without knowing the modern terminology, was a micro-reservoir that stabilized soil hydration and fed microbial life. Even in colonial-era gardening manuals, early botanists advised travellers to pack roots of precious plants in layers of damp moss and charcoal for long journeys, another form of mobile moisture core. In essence, it's a technique born out of necessity and rediscovered through experimentation. How to maintain a moisture core so it becomes a permanent feature of your soil. Once established, your moisture core doesn't need constant rebuilding. Every few months you can refresh it by inserting a stick or narrow trowel down the centre and pouring in a diluted compost tea or aloe slurry. This recharges the microbes and keeps the organic material active. Over time, the core becomes indistinguishable from the rest of the soil, except, it performs far better, maintaining structure and hydration balance. If you're growing herbs or vegetables in containers, this system allows you to travel or, well, miss a few waterings without risking collapse. It's also perfect for people who tend to love their plants a bit too much with frequent watering. Instead of constant surface irrigation, you can focus on feeding the soil. The moisture core takes care of the hydration. Restoring forgotten soil wisdom for modern survival gardening. In the end, the moisture core is more than just a watering trick. It's a rediscovery of balance, a bridge between ancient soil science and modern sustainability. It represents how early growers understood that water, when used intelligently, could sustain life for weeks without waste or rot. By recreating this method, you're not just saving your plants, you're reviving an old-world understanding of how ecosystems regulate themselves naturally. So next time you're tempted to reach for the watering can, pause for a moment. Instead of flooding your soil, build a core of life inside it. Let it breathe, let it hold, and let the plant decide how much it needs. If this guide opened your eyes to the quiet intelligence of old gardening wisdom, subscribe to Botanical and share this video with others who value sustainable, practical plant care. Let's keep rediscovering the techniques that once made survival and cultivation inseparable.